Welcome to Interview Tips with Miss Ekblad. So today our topic is going to be interviews. Our big headings, we're going to talk about attire, so what you should be wearing, different etiquette, questions, like what kind of questions might they ask you and how to answer those questions properly. And then as a bonus with this whole social distancing thing, phone interviews and Skype interviews have become very common. So we are going to dive into those things and how to properly interview using those channels. So let's jump in. So first of all, we have clothing. First and foremost, clothing should be functional. You don't want clothing that is going to distract from who you are as a person. So anything brightly colored or like animal prints or anything like that, we're not cool cats and kittens here. So we avoid animal print and we avoid anything that's distracting. Big hoop earrings, gaudy necklaces, big distracting anything. So like this has sleeves that flop around a lot, and it should be functional. I end up readjusting this shirt so much. I like this shirt, but as I move around, I end up readjusting it. So you want something that's functional and not distracting. All right, so change shirts. This doesn't flop around. It's comfortable. It fits. It would work depending on the job. Now, not all jobs. I would not have worn this shirt to my teaching interview, personally. Because generally a good rule of thumb is you want to dress one step up from what you would be wearing in that job. So as a teacher, I'd wear this shirt and khakis or dress pants of some sort. So for my interview, I want to go one step up. I put on a blazer in addition to dress pants and a shirt. If you were a mechanic, that's probably not the direction you would go. If you want to be a mechanic and you show up to your interview in a suit and tie, they're not going to hire you because they are going to think that you are too good for them. That you're going to be like, nope, can't do that because I can't get my hands dirty. So dress for the job one step above what you are going for, if that makes sense. So if the job is suit and tie, wear a suit and tie. If it's a dress shirt and pants, throw on a tie or something just to make it one step nicer. Bigger, more importantly, you want to be cleaned and well groomed. This isn't you come straight from a camping trip where you haven't showered for a week and jump in the interview room. You make sure your hair is brushed. If you have long hair, wearing a functional hairstyle. Especially if you have long hair, careful about keeping it down because if you are someone who fidgets with it all the time, when you are sitting in your interview and you are twisting your hair as you are talking, that's distracting. So a functional hairstyle, clean hair, not greasy, that sort of thing. Makeup. I have been told that as a female, I should wear light makeup to a job interview and that males should not wear any makeup to a job interview. To that, I say the system is screwed up and no. Your choice. Wear makeup, don't wear makeup. As long as it's not distracting. As soon as if you have like bright blue eyeshadow or something like that, probably not. But if you're going to wear makeup, light makeup. And if you don't want to wear makeup, don't wear makeup. If they don't hire you because you're not wearing makeup, it's probably not a job you want anyway, to be completely honest. Let's see. So we've gone through, as a high schooler, what I would probably wear to a job interview is this. Nice shirt, pair of dress pants, you're good to go. Again, if it's one of those more physical, laborious jobs that you're going to get dirty, nice pair of jeans. And I think that pretty well covers us for our dress unit. Jewelry, make sure nothing's big and gaudy. If you have piercings other than your ears, a lot of times it is recommended that you take those piercings out. Obviously, belly button piercing, they're not going to see, but lip piercings, septum piercings, nose piercings have become more acceptable, but anything that is bigger jewelry, take it out. What you want them to remember are your answers, not your lip piercing. All right, so now we are on etiquette, and we are going to cover things like how to get an interview. When should I show up? What do I do when I show up? What do I bring? All of those questions, and maybe a few more if I think of them. So, first things first, how do I get an interview? Well, the simple question is to apply for a job. Now, how your interview is going to be scheduled will kind of depend on how you applied for that job. I have been a part of many job application processes, some of which where I applied online and got a call later on about an interview, some of which I showed up and said, hey, are you hiring? And they went, yeah, we are. When can you start? So a little bit of both. If you have to go into the business to talk to them about getting a job, be prepared for an interview on site. Because if the manager's there and they need someone, they might just say, yeah, come on in, we'll interview you right now. So in that case, make sure you're dressed like you're going to be interviewed when you come in. Now, a lot of those jobs that will hire you on the spot like that are going to be entry-level positions, retail, gas station, grocery store, those types of positions. So whether or not you'll need a resume, cover letter, all of that jazz, a little more questionable. But if you have them, that just gives you a little leg up. When I worked at Menards, I had to give them a resume. Not to say all places require one, but some that you might not expect do. So if that's the process, a lot of times now you'll apply online. And I have talked to several hiring managers who go, honestly, if someone comes into my business and they say, hey, I'd like a job, I'll go, cool, the application's online. And if they have a problem with filling out that application online, I don't want them. Because using a computer is such a skill, a necessary skill today, that's almost like it's almost like a test before you get in. Can you use a computer? Now, there can be challenges if you don't have a computer or access to internet at home, in which case public libraries are a great resource. I believe closest one might be Rapids. So go to a public library, there's computers there. You can fill out an application that way if that is the case. Of course, as high school students, you have access to any of that technology at school. So just ask and we will help you. Any teacher would love to help you get to that point of that interview. We've already kind of gone through job applications, not kind of, we did. So next step there. Once you've gotten that interview, so for example, those times that I said that I had a online application, I usually got a call or an email sometime later. The sometime later varied from an hour to 2 or 3 days. I got either a call or an email saying, hey, we got your application, we're really excited, we'd like to set up an interview and possible dates, times, that sort of thing. So you set up the interview, you set up the date and time, and you set up the method. I've had phone interviews, I've had Skype interviews, in-person interviews, I've set them up over email, I've set them up over the phone. It totally depends on who's hiring you. So be prepared for either one of those, and as you are in the job application process, make sure you are frequently checking your email. If you applied for something using an online application, it's pretty likely that they will be contacting you through email, and if you're not checking your email, you might miss the, hey, we want to interview you email, and you just lost the job opportunity. So make sure you're checking that email. So, you scheduled the email, it's interview day, what should you be doing? Well, first thing you should do is put together all of your stuff, what you're going to bring. What I recommend bringing is a resume and several copies of your resume. Don't just bring one resume. bring at least 2 or 3 copies of your resume. Again, depending on the position, I've printed I have printed off up to 5 copies, but 2 to 3 is usually fine. Copies of a cover letter, again, 2 to 3 copies generally. Any letters of recommendation that you've had, even if you submitted all of this stuff with your application, print it off, bring it in. That way, in the interview, you can reference it. And then if you have any samples of work, bring those in. For example, my teaching interview, I brought in sample lesson plans. For a FFA officer interview, I brought in, did I have workshop? I think I had some workshop guidelines and stuff. If it's for a writing position, bring in samples of work. This is really, really, really important in artistic or creative platforms or jobs. So a writer, an artist, anything like that. If you are going more the performing arts route, they will probably have you do some sort of tryout on the spot rather than bringing your own work. But that also kind of has its own little world of what's required in the performing arts. So, let's see, we've got what to bring. We set up our interview, and then we're gonna show up. It is so important that you show up early. Not on time, early. But not too early. This is important. There is a very, very, very delicate balance. So, if you show up an hour early, you can be like, what does this person do all day? That they can show up to this interview an hour early? That's extra. But if you show up at the time of the interview and then you get lost and can't find where you're supposed to check in, that's also a problem. I've had 2 interviews that I had to drive over 4 hours for. And so those interviews, I showed up at the place like an hour early, but I did not go in an hour early. They wouldn't have been ready for me if I would have gone in an hour early. But when you're driving 4 hours, you might get stuck in traffic, if you have to stop for gas, any of that. So I factored in lots of extra time. So I did 2 things. One, I sat in my car for a while, and the other is I drove around town, explored the area, saw where I'd be working. Both of those totally fine, but otherwise show up about 15 minutes before, in the building 15 minutes before. It's not weird to sit in your car before an interview at all. Most people I talk to show up generally about half hour early and sit in their car for 15 minutes. Because, again, what happens if you get lost? What happens if you get in your car and you're like, oh, shoot, I have to get gas? What happens if there's an accident and traffic slows down? Obviously, if you're in an accident, that's a whole other story, but, like, if an accident in front of you and traffic gets slowed down. Any of those things could be issues that you would have to adjust. So you show up 10 to 15 minutes early, you get there, introduce yourself. If there is a receptionist, make sure you introduce yourself to them, shake their hand, talk to them like they're a person. If you are working at a place with a receptionist, how you treat that receptionist will affect whether or not you get that job. If you don't treat them like a person, they will not hire you. Period. So smile, talk with them. Introduce yourself while you're there, etc. If there's not a receptionist, that's okay too. Walk in, talk, figure out where you're supposed to be, introduce yourself, that sort of thing. Make sure you give a nice, firm handshake to anybody you meet. Literally anybody you meet. Because you don't know who is going to matter. And if these are your future colleagues, you want a good impression. This is your first impression. If this is your future boss, you want a good first impression. So go in, shake hands, smile, Even if you're nervous, smile and be ready for maybe sitting and waiting for a few minutes and maybe going and doing the interview immediately. Maybe they'll take you on a tour of the building, again, if it's a bigger business. Be ready for any of that. On the note of tours, make sure your car is clean, because sometimes they go, hey, let's drive around town, especially if it's a new area, and I'll show you around. So make sure your car is clean in case you end up driving them in your car. I've never been to an interview where that's happened, but I have heard of it happening. So, Plus, then you don't get gross in your car while you're driving. So just make sure your car is clean. We're going to talk about phone interviews and video conferencing interviews. And some of these things are very similar. Some kind of one way or the other. First of all, for either one, make sure you know who is calling who. I've been both a part of a phone interview and a Skype interview. I have never been the one to call. I've always been called, which is really nice because it's a lot of stress if you have to call. I've always been ready quite a lot, like 10 minutes or so before, and have sat and looked at my phone or my laptop for those 10 minutes. And then if they say the interview's at 4 and it's 4:02 and you're like, the email said they would call. And that freaked me out, but be aware it'll probably be within a couple minutes of that time. Not if they say it's at 4, they will call as soon as the clock flips 4, because I have definitely sat on my phone and have stared at it until it flipped that time, and it's really nerve-wracking. Make sure you are at an area where you have solid phone and or internet connection and your device is fully charged. The last thing you want is your device to die mid-interview. Also, make sure you're in a quiet place. Obviously, if you are at home, you can't control what everybody's doing, but make sure they're aware what you are doing. So, hey, I have a job interview on the phone, this is what's going on. Or I have a Skype interview or whatever it may be. Can you please be quiet from this time to this time? Hopefully your family will respect that. If they don't, try to look at other places that you could potentially go. Maybe sitting in a car, especially if it's a phone interview, and cell phone reception would be okay out there. Again, at your point in life, I know the school doesn't have good cell phone reception, but Wi-Fi, if it had to be a Skype interview, most likely you're not going to have to do, I retract that statement. Scholarship interviews might be phone or Skype. I definitely had phone scholarship interviews. As far as attire, phone, they aren't going to see you. It doesn't matter. But on that note, if you dress professionally, you tend to act more professionally. So you don't have to dress nice, but it might help you think your answers through. As far as online interviews, video interviews, obviously a nice shirt. I recommend nice pants. And the reason why is if you forgot something and you have to get up and grab it, you're either going to do this awkward scoot away, and you're going to back away, you're going to go grab it, and then you've got to do this awkward scoot back so that they don't see that you're wearing pajama pants or no pants. For sure, wear pants. At the very minimum, wear pants. But I recommend nice pants because, again, if something happens and you have to stand up, you don't want them to see anything other than professional. I think that pretty well wraps up what to expect in an interview. Yeah, I thought I had one more comment, but I can't think of it now. Might be an edit bonus momentarily, but have a great day. Make good choices. Oh, cell phones and interviews. There's kind of two trains of thought in this one. Most of the advice that I hear is don't even bring it in. Leave it in your car because you don't want it to accidentally go off. Personally, I bring it in and I turn it off in case there's a situation that they say, give me a phone number or something that I need to put into my phone. I at least have it on me. I've never actually needed it, so it's really more of a security blanket than anything else. But you do not want your phone to go off in an interview. Ever. So, especially when you are young, because they're already going, the youth today is so addicted to technology. You've heard it. You know what I'm talking about. So, don't give them ammunition. Just don't give them a reason to think that you can't put your phone down. So don't bring it in. That's all.